call it a doom loop, but it's where you take time off, your symptoms get better, but you reduce tissue capacity, you go ramp right back up, you hurt yourself again, you take time off, you lose fitness, you reduce tissue capacity, but your symptoms disappear, and then you ramp it back up. And it just becomes a cycle where eventually you just hurt and you can't do any activity without it feeling pretty bad.
Welcome back to another episode of Past Your Prime, the podcast for active adults balancing training, rehab, family, and real life. I'm Alex Kiker, Spiker Kiker on IG, here with my guy Craig Smith PT on IG. Today we're tackling one of the biggest lies in sports and fitness, that taking time off will fix your injury. Spoiler alert, it usually doesn't. If it did, I'd just retire every time I got hurt and be invincible by now. Instead, I keep coming back to Craig to figure out why my body can't handle the things that I like to do on a daily basis. So today we're just kind of talk about why taking time off doesn't fix recurrent injuries, to be somewhat specific.
To be very specific.
Somewhat specific.
To be relatively specific on what we're talking about.
On the scale of relativity.
We're relatively specific.
Okay. So why do I think, and a lot of other people think, that taking time off should solve an injury?
Well, just as to question you right back, is that the most common advice you've gotten?
Every time I Google an injury, the suggestion from Mr. Google is RICE, which the R in RICE stands for rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Totally true. And I think that idea is it's really good general advice if you don't consider your specific injury that you have.
Or several
injuries.
If you're me.
Yes. But I think that what's happening is, first, it's the most common advice. And if your first time that you have an injury, you go to somebody and they can only see you for 15 to maybe 20 minutes, and they're not going to see you for a long period of time again, the natural course of most first-time injuries is that it's going to heal. It's going to get better.
I feel like you're mentioning like a PT mill, which you used to work for.
Yeah. It could be a PT mill, but it could also just be if you go see your GP, like your general practitioner, physician, where they don't have a lot of tools outside of maybe prescribing a medication and then giving you a brace or some time off, which I think is fully reasonable for them to start with that route. But the idea is that rest equals tissue healing, which equals problem solved. And when we come to a recurrent injury, that equation just completely breaks down.
Well, and it could like make you feel better in the short term, because I generally feel like if I take a week off, I feel better. But then when I try to go back to doing my activity, I usually end up feeling worse afterwards.
So I call that fake improvement. But you have where in the short term, those symptoms disappear. But in the long term, you get stuck in this injury recurrent hell where you take time off and the symptoms go down. You think it's actually healed, but you actually had no real impact on your tissue capacity, which is really what matters. Call it a doom loop, but it's where you take time off, your symptoms get better, but you reduce tissue capacity, you go ramp right back up, you hurt yourself again, you take time off, you lose fitness, you reduce tissue capacity, but your symptoms disappear, and then you ramp it back up. And it just becomes a cycle where eventually you just hurt and you can't do any activity without it feeling pretty bad.
I like the term fake improvement because it's very easy to understand.
It is.
No explanation needed on that one. And it feels logical, but ignores what's really happening, it sounds like.
Yeah. So you're really not thinking through, are you building tissue capacity? Are you actually modifying all the triggers, everything that's involved? Are you adding any therapy that actually make the tissue capacity get better? It basically ignores everything and solves one part of maybe the problem, but especially in a recurrent injury issue, it solves nothing.
And this sounds like it kind of applies to our last episode, where I have decided to try and get my body feeling good rather than pushing performance as the only only thing that I'm doing right now, and I'm 1 week into that and already feeling a little bit better, but it sounds like it kind of ties in because I'm not necessarily taking time off, but I'm taking it easy, we'll say.
Yeah. So let's be honest. This whole next series of episodes that we're going to be doing, they're all targeted to help Alex talk to himself in a positive manner and not make the same mistakes that have been happening for the last 6 months.
My muscles are not exploding. They're healing.
They're healing. I like that the words are even changing. Yeah. He's been using a lot more flowery language today and a lot less destructive.
Flowery?
Yeah, like he may have not said flowery language, but that was the first time he said destroyed. So like that's good. Destructive.
Yeah. When, if ever, does time off actually work?
Well, there are cases where it does work. Just from a normal standpoint, if it's the very first time you've had this injury, it's an original injury, it's only happened one time before, that can actually work really well, taking just some time off. And part of the reason that that's the case is there's several things that have to line up. The first one is that your tissue capacity, if you guys remember us talking about the capacities from a few episodes ago, capacities are one of the things that we think drive a lot of people's health issues. There's 3 of them. You have energy capacity, tissue capacity, and one of them that I've used 2 different labels for, exercise or physical capacity. Differences between those capacities can drive different problems. For example, if you have an energy capacity issue, you may have low energy, feel really fatigued because when you're doing physical activity, it's really easy for you to overwhelm. The same thing can happen if tissue capacity is quite a bit lower than your exercise or physical capacity. You can basically hammer it, overload it, and cause an injury really easy. In this type of a situation where you do really well with just a little bit of time off, your tissue capacity and your physical capacity are actually quite close to each other. There's not a big difference.
And that's taken a long time for me to learn that mine don't match.
Yours are really far off. And I know we always joke around it, but I do actually think that's your root issue, is that your physical capacity is extremely high and your tissue capacity in some areas is very, very low. And it allows you to make compensations really well, but you have these like injuries that happen first because you compensate, and second because you have areas that mismatch is just dramatic.
And normally my energy capacity is really good, but I was playing volleyball 8 hours ago, and so it's not as good right now.
This is low energy, Alex.
Day.
The other thing I look for is that you have no inhibitions. So you have none of those hidden inhibitions like we've talked about previously, where muscles shut down. So if you have swelling in a knee joint, you have arthrogenic inhibition, or you have an irritated back and you have gluteal inhibition, those things aren't happening. So you don't have any of these other things that typically drive lower tissue capacity. You're just stable. The other one that I like to think about is you have no other contributing factors. So there's no regional influences that drive the injury. You haven't had any weird changes to your pain modulation. So you're not sensitized. You don't have poor sleep. Your nutritional habits are good. All of those things would indicate that you're going to get better because you're creating an environment that the body can heal in. You were laughing.
I've got all of these right now, like just in the moment. I normally don't have the other contributing factors because I try to take care of my nutrition and my sleep, but I neglected them to come podcast today.
We appreciate that, don't we, guys? He did tell me when we started today that he might be spicy, but what I'm actually seeing is he's more low energy.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll get through it.
When we recorded the intro, initially he fell asleep halfway through it, and we had to restart. That's actually not a joke. That actually just happened.
It did. Yeah. I was snoring.
The last one is that the trigger, you have one trigger, and the trigger that you're being told to rest from and stop doing is the only trigger that's bothering this injury, that's reducing tissue capacity. That's very uncommon, but that would be a sweet spot if that one trigger that you take out is the thing it's the only thing that's hurting you.
Okay, so those are the things that generally a little bit of time off can be helpful for. For everything else, why does time off, I guess, kind of fail in recurrent injuries?
Got it. Recurrent injuries are just a completely different category of a problem. the fact that it's come back more than once, we already know that almost none of the situations that I just went through are the case. It's not the first time you've had the injury. It is not single trigger driven. We also know that your tissue capacity and your exercise capacity are not equal. So there's like all of those things that I just went through. The exact opposite is what's happening. And so to be really specific and start to hammer through them, you probably have hidden triggers, which means that it's not just the obvious trigger. So for example, say running hurts you, it's not going to be just running that's also hurting your body. It could also be walking. It could be standing. It could be a whole grip of things that you don't even recognize because it doesn't elevate to the same level as your main trigger.
And those are just things that you do in everyday life. It could be the way that you stand for an extended period of time during the day. It could be the position you sit in, or just sitting at all. It could be sitting in the car. There are a lot of different things that could be, kind of contributing factors, aka hidden triggers, to why you're in a recurrent injury doom loop.
Good point. And that also leads us into the next point, is that you are getting lowered tissue capacity. So your tissue capacity is not static. None of the capacities are. And when you're going through this problem, that capacity is lowering. You have all these hidden triggers along with your obvious triggers that are lowering your tissue capacity. And as it gets lowered, more and more things actually trigger your tissue.
Yeah, I continue to have things that trigger me. Not always my tissues, but just things in life.
Just things in life. Yeah, it's us getting the audio to work correctly today was a triggering activity.
Very
for him.
Triggering.
Yeah, it caused his shoulder and his wrist to hurt. We need to be open to those issues. I think another big one is that tissues do take time to heal, and oftentimes they can take longer than what you think. But then you can also have where you think it's just healing, but it's way outside the tissue healing timetable. So there's kind of an in between. So if you do take time off and you do it for 2 weeks, that's not enough time for most tissue injuries to actually go through a healing cycle. Whereas if you go 3 months out and you're still having the same symptoms, you're typically past where it should have healed, which then means you're doing stuff to actually irritate the tissue over and over and over again.
I'm currently doing that because, with my adductor, hamstring, whatever's going on there, it's improving, but just so slowly. And I can't tell if hopefully I'm not now with this new little regimen I'm on, but I can't tell if I'm continuing to piss it off or if it's actually slowly getting better. It actually didn't bother me last night, which is good, but it did before we started. So it's certainly not gone. And
yeah, and it's okay.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And it's okay if you're still getting some symptoms, but you are seeing an improvement in tissue level response. Also, if you're seeing an improvement in level of severity, like those are also indications that the tissue is building. But that is a big, important piece just to recognize, is that it just may take longer for the tissue to heal and you haven't given it that time, which is why it keeps on recurring.
Got it.
In line with that, with the lowering tissue capacity, the hidden triggers, the healing timetable, oftentimes people are dealing with multiple triggers that when combined together, so maybe it takes 3 to 4 triggers interacting with each other to actually exceed the threshold to then hurt yourself. So that would be really common in things like headache pathologies. And you work with Sarah, my wife, as a physical therapist, and she uses the threshold pathology as an idea all the time because individuals can have headaches that's driven by numerous things. It can be cervicogenic, meaning the neck is involved that's causing part of it. It can be that you have soft tissue referrals from like your upper trap. You can have sensitivities to caffeine, red wine, poor sleep. It could be hormonal. There could be this whole grab bag of different things that are actually causing the symptoms. And if you take out one of them, it doesn't actually irritate the person.
I feel like most people want a grab bag.
I don't know why I said grab bag.
This is not a grab bag that I would want any part of.
Yeah. I don't even know if grab bag worked in that. The way I said it sounded kind of weird. After I said it, I was like, that sounds weird. I'm glad that you pointed it out so we can't cut that out from the podcast now.
You're welcome.
Good. Appreciate it.
And the last one is one that I've certainly done several times, overshooting on return. Yeah.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that? I would actually say that's probably your biggest issue. Why do you think that is?
Because I've played sports at such a high level for so long that I am very used to balls to the wall only.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah. Spiking spikes, digging out pancakes.
Digging out pancakes.
And
that sounds so good. I'm so hungry right now.
I'm actually really hungry as well. So overshooting on the return, the big issue with this problem with recurrent injury is that if you have the same mentality going back into the activity that was hurting you before that you had right before you hurt yourself, that's very normal to do, especially if you maintained fitness the whole time through, but your body may not be able to handle it as well. And so it's a really common for you to feel like, well, I'm not even working out very hard now. And that's appropriate because you should be focused on building tissue capacity, but your brain goes immediately to performance. And if that's what you're starting to focus on, you're always going to overshoot what your tissue can handle because your tissue at that moment is lower than your physical capacity. It is such a common problem with people who enjoy physical activity and who are really good at it.
You're being really mean. I'm trying to work on it as we speak right now.
Yeah.
I did 6 exercises only this week.
And what happened?
I felt a little bit better.
You felt a little bit better?
Well, yeah. I went a little hard on deadlifts, so my hamstrings were a little bit sore, but I haven't been doing a lot of conventional deadlifting, so.
Did you get any new injuries?
No.
Is that the first time in a while that you've had no new problems?
In 1 week of working out? Yeah.
That is a sign that he is not overshooting where his tissue capacity is. And you can even just tell, even though we're joking, he's having a hard time actually believing it and feeling that it was even worth it to go do the exercise.
I'm having a hard time doing just a 30-minute workout is really where I'm struggling.
I just think that's really interesting. Part of the issues with recurrent injuries is they're so behavioral driven. Like the way that you believe around what it takes to become physically athletic, what you think it entails to be able to train hard. Like those are things that you're overcoming with these types of injuries. It's not just my tissue's healing. Am I doing the right? Am I supposed to be stretching this muscle? Am I supposed to be doing this exercise? It's so much more complicated than that once you start to show recurrence.
I just keep telling myself that I'm intentionally doing this for a greater purpose. It's not working just yet, but we'll see how week 2 goes.
I really love it. Make sure we get the positive mantras in there.
Yeah. If you haven't done so yet, throw us a quick subscription. We love creating this content for you guys, and the more subscribers we have, the better it'll do. If you feel compelled to, share it on your story maybe. Share it with a friend. That would help us out a lot. So what's the strategy to use other than just taking time off? I'm starting to work through this myself with your guidance, but for all the listeners out there,
you have to create a therapeutic gap. We've gone over that before. It is a very simple concept. Your tissue capacity is the thing that you're trying to improve. Whatever the mechanical or musculoskeletal injury that you have is, you're trying to get your tissue capacity to increase. And it's really simple. You either have to have therapies that improve your tissue capacity. You have to have those in there, or you take out the things or modify or eliminate the things that reduce tissue capacity. For you to create a healing environment, you have to have a difference between your therapeutic activities and your triggering activities. We call that a therapeutic gap. If you lose that at any point, you quit having any healing response.
And I am currently focusing on the triggers.
Intensely.
Probably more so than ever before.
And why that's going to work is that your triggering activities were so much higher than any therapy that could be provided that you have to go that route. And that's like even one of the reasons why people ask me about, should I do this therapeutic injection? Should I get PRP? Should I do stem cell? Should I do, cortisone? Well, part of the reason that those can actually work is you could be forced to take time off. It's the same thing around like some aspects around surgery is that you actually do reduce your triggers while you add a therapeutic on top of it. But then I'll have individuals who will get these injections and they only do the injection. They do nothing on the trigger management side. And within a couple weeks, they're right back where they were. So you just wasted a significant amount of money on a treatment because you only addressed one side of the equation. You have to create a therapeutic gap.
I've done no injections. I'm injection free.
Injections could be a thing we go into. You could eventually do injections as long as it's like, not a hardcore drug.
Like ibuprofen.
Oh God, I always forget that. You also don't want to mask your symptoms without being clear on what you want to do.
I'm clear on what I want to do. That's why I continue to take ibuprofen.
I love it. So that's number one. Number two is I think it's really important for you to get clarity on what is your current tissue capacity and what is your current physical or exercise capacity. If you're somebody who can make yourself feel worse quite easily, and it feels like, man, I didn't even do anything, you have a large gap between your physical capacity and your tissue capacity, which means you are going to really struggle to ever actually heal this issue.
I think what made this clear for me was when you were like, well, a 1 on the pain scale is still a 1. Oh, so that's making myself worse? Yes. Got it.
And I think what was really interesting in our conversation on that was that did actually seem shocking to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And part of that is because when's the last time you did a workout before this last couple of weeks where we really have focused on it, that you didn't have an increase in pain?
I had some, like if I would just go and do an isometric workout, I usually wouldn't have any pain with those. When I was really working on like my PFP and my patellar tendonitis, I probably still had a little bit of pain during those workouts. So very seldom did I have a pain-free workout.
And what has happened in those situations is his tolerance for being uncomfortable / painful had risen to a really high point. And even, if you guys remember, there's a difference between pain threshold, pain tolerance. Pain threshold is like the threshold that you have to cross for you to say it's pain. And pain tolerance is where you say, ooh, I can't do anymore. Like that's all I can tolerate. I'm not going to go any higher.
I don't have the latter.
Yeah. So you actually have an issue on both. You tolerate a lot you can keep on pushing through a lot, but also he's artificially in his brain changed what he perceives as pain. Like I'll catch people doing this all the time. They'll change the term from pain to things like, well, it just feels tight. And then I'll be like, well, what the heck do you mean by tight? Well, it just feels, and then I'll keep on forcing them to explain it. And eventually they'll go, well, it hurts, but I wouldn't call it pain. I was like, well, what else would you call it?
It's tender.
It's tender. Well, is tender kind of a pain? Well, I wouldn't call it pain. And like you have to actually work through, and what you'll find is they have created a different definition of pain. It is pain, but they've created a different definition so that they can, in my opinion, lie to themselves effectively.
Yeah, you exposed me.
Nice. I like that. I'm actually really pumped that every time I win those arguments, it's a big thing for me.
What did it take? Like 9 months?
6 months. It's taken, why? Because Noah's in December. We started having these conversations.
Yeah.
So December to now. And I think that I have tried to get through. I don't know what changed, but you've been doing better. So it's good.
All right. Thank you.
The next thing I like to do is lateralize. So you find the closest thing to what does trigger you, but you try to find something that's really close to it that causes no symptoms. This can be tricky to do.
It's tricky to rock a rhyme.
That's actually really true. Yeah, that's 100% true. It's a true statement. But what I mean by this is not so much rocking a rhyme. It's lateralization is to think through is you take something that you can't do without symptoms. So like squat, for example, say when you squat, you feel it in your back and your hip, and you can change it to something like a sit to stand, still loaded, same weight and everything like that. And it causes no symptoms, no changes in your tissue capacity. If anything, it helps. That is a great lateralization. Those can be very, very difficult to find on your own. So instead, regress it. So you may reduce the load. You may also do like a sit to stand. You may do other things to make it so that movement does not hurt whatsoever.
Yeah, I went from ATG squats to just parallel squats, and that seemed to make a significant difference in my pain overall.
Yeah, I would call that a lateralization.
Right, I'd agree.
And so that's actually really, so he reduced range of motion, which is totally fine, still going far enough to get the benefits. That is exactly what we're talking about. Those can be tricky. So if you find, when we get into the end of this podcast where we go really specific on ways that you check the tissue capacities being improved, that's a great way for you to still keep the benefits, not lose tissue capacity, but also not lose where your physical performance is at.
Got it. What's next?
You need to identify all the triggers. I think that's also a very tricky one. Triggers can be differentiated to me in two large groups. The first trigger is the obvious trigger. Those are the ones that they clearly hurt you. They're the ones that you're having to stop because it's bothering you so bad. Those are typically the ones that lead you into a PT office or to go see your primary care doc. Those are easy. Those are very easy. And what's interesting about obvious triggers is those ones, if that was the only thing we had to deal with, rehab would be extremely simple. And like I said, you would already probably be feeling better. The hidden triggers or the non-obvious triggers, they're the gold that will actually allow you to have a healing situation. And so you need to look for them all. And it's really difficult to do that if it's just based off of symptoms. Is where key signs come in. It can be really, really helpful. But you want to find all of the things in your day that actually make you feel worse.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned a slew of them earlier, but things like sitting with my legs extended during the day can have a poor response in my calf or my hamstring or my back. There's just so many things that like you wouldn't think of. And part of me just is like, maybe that's just because I'm getting a little bit older. I got to focus on the way that I sit now to be able to have a good workout or to be able to spike volleyballs in the evening. But it's true. I mean, you're sitting in a position that's compromising your tissue or your muscles in your leg. And so sitting in an extended position for 2 hours at a time while you're focusing on deep work or whatever that looks like can just have a really negative response in your body. So, now whenever my watch is like, you need to get up and do something, like I at least try and stand up for a minute and, shake myself out before getting back to it.
When it screams move at you, move. Along with that one, a really close thing to hidden triggers are interactions between activities.
Okay.
So all that means is like you might have two things that by themselves would not actually be a trigger. Maybe it's going for a walk. Go for a walk by itself, not a trigger. Sitting for less than an hour, not a trigger. But say you do walk and then immediately follow that up with sitting. Those interacting together can actually become a trigger.
Yeah, and I think the one I had mentioned previously was doing a heavy leg day and then the next day going and playing volleyball caused a hamstring strain. And it was one where I didn't think that there'd be that big of an interaction there, but there was a significant interaction and it caused me to have to reduce my time in a gym and not necessarily take some time off, but I had to be much more mindful about what I was doing to not progress that injury.
And so on that one, if he did deadlift and he maybe had 3 days between deadlifting and his volleyball, it wouldn't be an issue. So either one of them by themselves would not be a trigger, but it's the proximity of the two. Those are just really big. So I always look for sustained positions followed by an activity followed by a sustained position. I also really like to look at if somebody has work that causes them to really focus, where they kind of get outside their body. And then you mentioned one with competitive activity or like the sport and activity that you like, you can get into the zone and you won't notice anything in your body, which can also be a huge issue.
Until right after.
Right? So those are the ones I really like to look for. And then finally, my last thing is, the timing. Timing, that's right. And so there might be certain types of injuries. Most common one that I always think of is like a disc injury, where if you load it in the morning because of how the disc hydrates at night, you're going to have more pressure on the disc in the morning. And so there's certain activities you don't want to do that could be bad in the morning, but totally fine in the evening. You could load it and have no triggering issue with it if you do the same exercise. So you might also look for, when do you feel the worst? And that's not when you do an activity that could be a potential trigger, but it's only a trigger because of the time of day.
And I just am limited in the times specifically throughout the day that I can do my activity. So I'm hopeful that, most of my evening workouts, volleyball sessions are not contributing to this, but but they might be.
It could be, and sometimes you can't change things, and that's actually really important to know. So if there's stuff where it's like, okay, I know this is an issue, well, then we use different solutions, which is fine.
Yeah, selecting different exercises that maybe are not as triggering, or doing that lateralization like we just talked about. So what's the big takeaway for someone stuck in the rest re-injury cycle?
Taking time off can put you into a doom loop. So if you find that you took time off, even if it was a first time injury, you took time off, you go back to it and it still hurts or it gets worse, you are now getting into the beginning of a cycle that could make your tissue capacity get lower and drive you into an injury that always comes back. And it's just being very clear that taking time off, not only could it be not helpful for this injury, it can make it a permanent problem that you're having to deal with.
So you need to kind of look at it more as a long-term solution, like me doing 3 exercise movements in a single workout over 1 week is not going to fix me, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's it. If you guys can hear him and see him crying like a child, I really think it's important to remember it's recurrent injuries are behavior-driven problems.
I have bad behavior.
Bad behavior. They're not solved by temporary solutions. So like that idea of his biggest problem is his brain right now. Like he doesn't view things that are therapeutic as actually helpful. He views things being really hard as better than doing things that don't make him feel worse.
I have a big brain.
He has
and I'm being sent to the principal's office now for my bad behavior.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, if you guys have listened to our podcast, you guys understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'm doing this with love.
Okay, so I need to change my behavior.
Behavior changes. If you don't change your behavior around this or your view of it, you're going to be in a permanent injury hell.
Attitude is a choice is my life mantra, and I'm still choosing to have a slightly bad attitude about this one, but I'm going to try it.
It's a good sign.
Trying sounds short term though, so I need to make a long term choice here.
As you feel better, I think you'll come along, but it's always your decision if you want to feel terrible forever. Like I'm okay with that.
All right, I don't want to feel terrible forever, just for a short while. So like, what are the next steps? What are the practical steps that I or somebody listening should be taking to get out of their injury loop?
Number one, go back to our podcast where it talks about the body inventory. Really dig into what your injury history has been. Identify if the current injury you're dealing with is actually a recurring injury. Start there. Like really look at what you've done in the past, what you've dealt with, what caused it to happen, and what made it feel better.
And you made me do this.
And it helped.
I think so. Yeah. Even though there weren't answers to every single one of the specific injuries I had. There were some that the key sign is still kind of in the works. There were some that, have gone away, but we still wanted to monitor and didn't have, any way to really check a key sign because nothing was bothering me there. But I do think that it contributed to some of my mindset.
You realize some things.
Brain problems.
It's wild to me how often we change our history without realizing it, not on purpose, but then also we ignore very obvious signs. We're all busy. We have different things that we want to do. And actually writing it down, I think, is very helpful because most often when I have people who go through a body inventory or I do it with them, they're shocked. Like they really are. They're like, oh. And then later, the next time I see them, they may have 5 or 6 more things that they have now realized they've been constantly compensating or managing or masking.
You just jump in your little time machine and, oh yeah, I did roll my ankle back in '84.
Yeah.
And that's still contributing to my gait.
Well, yeah, you're right. I had this back issue and I basically quit sitting for long periods of time. Or, oh yeah, I do this or I do that, or I never walk without shoes on. Or like you have all these things that people will realize, oh, I've built a permanent compensation because of this. I never actually fully managed it. Just have awareness. I think that's the biggest, that's like the biggest thing to start with is what are you actually dealing with and get really clear on it.
All right. What else are you having me focus on?
Know or develop your key signs, or if you can't find a really good key sign, which is just a rapid retest that you can use to see if something's getting better or worse, that's related to whatever symptom you have, look for any feedback loops. So with him, he doesn't have a rapid sign for a couple of them, but you do have symptoms we can track over time to see that they're improving.
Right. And that's, yeah, kind of for my knee, for my adductor, even for my wrist to some extent. It's just like actually thinking about the pain. Like, am I experiencing a 1 out of 10? Because that is relevant data.
Yeah. And you can see that the frequency is going down, intensity is dropping, things like that, how often it happens, irritability when you do trigger, it's reducing. Like there's all these things that you can monitor, but just you need a key sign, you need a feedback loop. So key sign, retest it, feedback loop. What are you actually experiencing? Is it reducing?
Yeah. Another thing that I've added based on Sarah's feedback, and I'm sure you'd agree with it, is a cool down.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She's big on those. And I think our team uses it a lot too, but I've been in on a few of her sessions and she is really big on, I've heard her call it a warm down, which is actually pretty interesting where she'll, I like the way that she uses the thought process on it, but it's really, you want to make sure that you're maximizing your tissue capacity when you start your work, good warm up, and you're maximizing your tissue capacity after you get done. You don't want to set your body up to have an interaction with anything afterwards. And you also just want to make sure you're creating a healing environment for the tissue capacity to continue to heal.
Mine is as simple as 5 minutes on the bike after my lifting session.
It can be that simple.
Yeah.
And then you can retest a key sign afterwards and see that it gets better. So it's like you get done with your workout, you test your key sign, you notice it's a little bit elevated, a little bit more symptomatic. You do your cool down, warm down, and then afterwards you retest it and it's better. That'd be a beautiful way to make sure that your body's having a good response.
All right. What else can people be doing right now?
Don't jump back into whatever the main triggering activity is immediately. Gradually reintroduce it. Which, I mean, I think that sounds reasonable, but I would say most individuals I find will take like 2 to 3 weeks off, and then they'll go back to a really hard exercise or something that they know hurts them, and then they'll be surprised that they had a bad response to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Running, jumping.
I don't have anything else to say about that. Yeah. I'm very guilty of that.
So like an idea, for example, like running, like an easy one around running, if it hurts you to run and you got it at 5 miles and it was severe and you've slowly been losing miles before you get pain and you decide to come back to running, shorten the distance, don't go as fast, do it uphill on a treadmill to take force out. Like there's all these options for you to re-engage with the triggering activity, but just do it gradually.
I think we're making some strategic decisions with my plan to allow me to continue to play volleyball, which is probably the highest impact activity that I'm doing, but everything else I'm taking slow as of right now.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. The last one is specific to tissue capacity, right? It's, are you doing everything you can to create a healing environment? Are you getting good sleep? Are you eating healthy meals? Are you taking an inventory of your stress level? Like we know that Alex had a return back to work that's been pretty intense, right?
Yeah, it's starting to taper off a little bit though. So,
but the beginning of the year is always the hardest, right?
Right.
And I think those types of things, looking for stuff outside of what you would consider the activity that hurts you, like if you're having a huge increase in stress, those things to your body are still stressful and they can lower your tissue capacity for the moment. Just recognize them and see if you can do things to mitigate it.
Sleep is a big part of that one. And I did not participate in good sleep last night. Well, I had good sleep, just not enough of it.
Not great sleep.
Anyway, if you've been stuck in the cycle of resting and re-injury, it's not about more time off. It's about building a plan that manages triggers and builds resilience. That's how you get back to training without the same injury haunting you every season like it does for me. I've got little ghosts just flying around me all the time.
Haunting.
Oh, Halloween's almost here.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Haunting.
Yeah, we'll do it with masks on.
I'm down.
Yeah, that won't be weird.
All right. Where are you in 75 hard?
I have a little over 2 weeks left. I'm killing it. Yeah, it's going really well. I'm really thinking about what things I want to make into permanent changes, what things I want to have more clear rules around. But yeah, it's going really well.
And you got punched in the face in boxing this week.
I did. It's really hard when you're doing sparring not to get hit in the face. So I am getting punched in the face a bit more than normal, but I don't know. My head seems to be handling it well.
All right. Don't get any dumber on me.
Uh,
Like, follow, subscribe. Check us out at pastyourprime.com. Find us on IG. Give us a follow there. And I think we'll see you on the next one.
BYP, baby.
Peace.